I have known Helene Lotman, CEO of Jewish Family and Children's Services of the Suncoast, for 3 years. It helps, of course, that I was on the board when she joined the organization. I got to see Helene work up close, rebuilding the organization's culture and leading efforts to increase fundraising. The Business Observer writes often about nonprofit leaders like Helene. To read these stories and more, subscribe to the Business Observer. Go to businessobserverfl.com to sign up. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Helene Lotman, CEO of JFCS of the Suncoast. Helene, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so you and I have known each other for several years. I had the privilege of being on your board for many years, and
yes,
so
and we miss you.
I miss you guys as well. But it's good to see you virtually here. So we're going to get to know JFCS and you and the mission and your leadership career. I know you've done a lot of other things in terms of leading organizations. But even before we get to that, let's get to know Helene a little bit. We're going to start with some rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. Who is one person, dead or alive, you would love to have dinner with?
Michelle Obama.
Oh, all right. Tell us why.
I think she's very articulate. I think she's wise. I think she's positive, passionate. I think she has a compelling presence. And I think she has a lot of experiences to share.
Well, certainly would. Passionate, positive, and presence. 3 Ps. I like it. Okay. What's one food you would take with you to a deserted island?
Golden raisins.
Really?
Yeah.
Golden raisins?
Yeah.
But it's got to be golden raisins, not just regular.
Golden. I don't like the dark ones. I only like the golden ones.
All right. And I know you're a super tech person. What are the 2 most used apps on your phone?
Outlook and Safari.
Outlook and Safari. So you're doing your emails and you're researching.
Yep.
Yeah, you're on top of it. All right, excellent. Let's get into it. Before we get to your career, Helene, tell us about JFCS. What is that organization? What is its mission and vision?
Well, it's a nonprofit social services agency that provides support services and critical assistance for vulnerable clients, youth and families and veterans and seniors of all faiths. And we make sure that no one is left behind, that everybody has the kinds of skills that they need to progress in life. Excellent.
Yeah. So it has its arm in a lot of different things. Again, I know I was on the board for several years, and so there's youth and there's seniors and veterans. So a lot of things for a lot of demographics.
Yes. And it's what's important is that we want to give people a sense of resiliency and ability to cope with life's challenges.
Yeah. And you've been here, it's going on about 3 years now, 2022.
Not quite 2.5.
2.5, not quite 3.
Yeah.
And I know you came on when I was on the board, you were hired as CEO. And tell us a bit about your career beforehand. I know there was some time in Kansas City, East Coast of Florida. So just kind of give us this overview of your career.
Yeah. I've had a really different and exciting career. I have experience in both the nonprofit and the for-profit world. And my most recent work experiences were for the Kansas City Jewish Federation. I was the CEO, and I was the interim CEO at the West Palm Beach. So Kansas City I was at for 7 years, and West Palm Beach I was at for 2.5 years. But an interesting aside is that I've also have been an executive in a high-frequency trading firm. So in a for-profit world, which is very different. And really what I specialize in is turnarounds. Yeah. How to help an organization either refresh, redefine themselves, turn around financially in terms of leadership. And that's really what excites me the most.
And that's one of the things that you were brought on here in Sarasota.
Yes.
Is sort of financial turnaround. Tell us, what are some of the key steps you took in Sarasota with Jewish Family and Children's Services of the Suncoast? What are some of the key steps you took to turn around that organization?
Well, first of all, I listened. I have to say that I started out meeting with 150 people
Right.
in 100 days. And I listened to what people thought were the challenges. There was a lot of change here in the leadership, change in the professional leadership, in the board leadership, over, I'd say, 7 years or so,
Yeah.
5 to 7 years.
A lot of
And
turnover.
I wanted to know, what the story was. I knew that we had a stellar reputation years ago. We've been here, well, now we're coming on our 40th anniversary, believe it or not. And I wanted to know, basically what happened, because there were a number of people that had stepped back from the organization. And so the first thing I did was, as I said, I spoke to people. Then I looked at what was going on here internally. So financially, we had challenges. Leadership wise, we had challenges. We didn't have the right people in the right spots. There was a lot of everybody doing their own thing. There wasn't really teamwork, and it was very siloed, the organization. And so the thing that I focused on most was not only working on the expenses, but also building the culture, because I feel that the culture is really what makes an organization. And I'm proud to say we've been very successful in that area, as well as cutting as well as financially.
Well, certainly, yes. The budget was certainly turned around. But talk about the culture a little bit. What do you do? It's a big organization. You come in, I think there was 80, 85 or so employees when you started. And so it's a big organization, and, changing culture is challenging, right? Everybody's kind of got their different view of what that means. What are some of the steps you took as a leader to change the culture of the organization?
The very first thing I did within the first week was I was very transparent.
Yeah.
I just told everybody, the whole staff, what was going on, what I had seen, what I observed, what I heard. And it was a rude awakening for the majority of them. They had no idea the challenges and the depth of the challenges that we had. So what I did is, the first thing was pull together the team, in terms of, we have many different departments here. And so once a week, in fact, I started out twice a week having what I call huddles, where we would all get together and the different departments would share highlights of what's going on. It was amazing to me that there were so many people in the building who didn't know what the next person in the office was doing.
Really?
So that was the first thing. The other thing is I started birthday lunches. So once a month, I take out everybody that has a birthday in that month, and it's from all different departments. And so it's very exciting because they get to, again, meet each other, talk informally. I give out notes. I have, it's called Hugs and High Fives from Helene. And I reinforce people with what's going on when I hear something good about where they are. And they're just random, and, but people are like amazed.
Yeah.
I also have a very open door policy and a coffee maker, which is a nice draw. Yeah. And everybody loves to come in here, have coffee, just sit and chat. Don't have to talk about an issue or a problem or even work. So that was another thing. I also started professional development. My background is in professional development.
Right.
And so what I did is, once every 6 weeks, I do professional development with the entire staff. Every 3 weeks, I do it with the middle managers. And then I have a high potential group that I meet with weekly. Yeah,
that's a lot of items on the menu for culture. I want to go back. Hugs and high fives with Helene. That's awesome. So what does that look like in practice? I mean, how are people telling you, hey, Helene, you got to hear what Jane did or Bob did?
Well, I'm a very involved CEO. I know a lot what's going on. People talk to me. And so when I hear things or I observe things, I write, it's really like a little card with a big red heart on it. And just write a note. Thank you for what you're doing and your
Yeah.
contribution. I also have Shabbat on Fridays, which is really a session to really welcome in the weekend.
Yeah.
In the Jewish tradition, we welcome in Shabbat on Friday. And
Right.
so
Sure.
at the end of it, really at 3 o'clock on Friday, because I close the office at 3:30, which is another benefit
Yeah.
that people loved. We talk about values and how what we do connects to the people, and how that we're really all the same. What brings us all together?
Sure.
So there's a lot of togetherness here.
Yeah.
Hot
And I want to
lava.
go back to something else you said that I find really interesting as a leader. So you talked about open office, open door office, and you have a coffee maker, people come in and chit chat. Hey, Helene, as somebody, you got a lot of responsibilities, right? You're the CEO, buck stops here kind of thing. How do you set up your work day when you know people are going to be coming in and out? I ask because I could be very linear and I want to get something done, right? It's right in front of me. As a leader, how do you balance getting what you need to get done and having an open door policy?
Well, I'm very structured with my list, and I come in
Yeah.
with a list, but I'm also very quick to release my list unless it's something
Got it.
external I can't redo. A lot of
Yeah.
meetings are internal, and I will reschedule. But I think the most important people here, other than the clients, are my staff.
Yeah.
And if my staff aren't happy, then the organization doesn't function well.
Sure.
So I need them at their best, and I want them to know that I'm here for them, that I support them, that I believe in them,
Yeah.
and being accessible, walking the hallways. I mean, in the beginning, when I walked the hallways and stopped in offices, people were like terrified. Like, why are you stopping in my office, kind of thing.
The high school principal just stopped into my office.
Yeah,
let's
exactly. And so,
Yes.
but now it's very common.
Yeah.
I walk the halls all the time, and
Yeah.
people come in and share what's going on in their life and what successes they've had
Sure.
with the programs, and it's really great.
Going back to your career overall, Helene, what do you look for in leaders? Whether it was promoting somebody in Kansas City or here or just in your career, what stands out to you about good leadership?
Well, first of all, I think good leadership is unique. I think it's not a common thing, even though somebody may have a title as a
Yeah.
leader, doesn't necessarily make them, by my definition, a good leader. I think
Yeah.
emotional intelligence is key. I think empathy. I think listening and curiosity. I think humility, being a visionary, passionate, transparent, and kind. So I look for all of those things.
Yeah.
And of course, some of us have a lot, some of us don't have a lot, but you can work on all of those things as long as you have the self-awareness, which is really part of the emotional intelligence.
Self-aware, yeah, emotional IQ, and you
Exactly.
mentioned
And
curiosity.
self-regulation, because once you have the awareness, then you have to realize what it is that you need to do to change something.
Yeah.
But I believe that anybody can learn and grow and develop if they want to, and I give a lot of feedback. I'm an executive coach from
Yeah.
the past, and I do executive coaching with a number of my staff that request it, and it works.
Yeah, and you mentioned curiosity. That comes up a lot on the From the Corner Office podcast. It's so important, I think, as a leader to not go into a situation thinking you know all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned being a good listener, but I think that's being curious about what really happened, whether it's a client, an employee, a situation,
And I
curiosity.
think that's the same thing with the transparency. If
Yeah.
you're transparent and you're telling people, then they ask questions. What do
Yeah.
you think? How
Right.
can we do this differently? I want people to bring in their ideas.
Yeah.
So I would say that I lead that way.
Yeah. What about what you've learned as a leader? What's one or two pieces of leadership advice that you've learned that's really stuck with you in your career?
My first one is really to be bold. As a woman professional,
Yeah.
and starting in my career when it was not all that fashionable, and I was one of a very few number of women in my profession. My tendency was maybe to pull back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had a wonderful mentor who said to me, Helene, you need to be bold. If you're going to lead, you need to be bold. So that was one thing. And the other was really learning about hiring A-level people, A-list people.
A-list people, yeah.
And by A-list people, it was defined as first, intellectual firepower, second, values, third, passion, fourth, work ethic, and fifth, experience, which is very different than how I used to interview and what I was looking for in people I wanted. I now look for that passion and what the values are, and that's the kind of questions I ask when I interview anybody into the organization.
Yeah, that passion. If you're not feeling that in that interview, I've learned that we're here in mid-June in the Observer Media Group. I'm hiring a reporter, and I've been going through the interview process, and kind of right away in that interview, if they're not feeling that passion, it's probably not going to be a good fit, and you kind of know that.
Mm-hmm. And the intellectual firepower, I, again, believe that you can teach anybody anything. So I can teach anybody skills. My background is in special education, and I work with very severely impaired people. And I was able to teach them to toilet. I was able to teach them how to eat with a spoon and a fork. And, so I feel like I could teach anybody anything, certainly people that have the capacity. And so I think that that's important. Like, are they smart? What kind of questions are they asking?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
So I really try to listen again more than I talk when it comes to interviewing.
Yeah. Another thing that happens in any organization and in leadership is, we talk the word resilience used a lot, but, I look at it as like overcoming a setback or a failure. As a leader, what are some techniques that you have used to overcome something when things don't go your way?
Well, I realized for me, I was always very energetic and very passionate from the beginning of my career. And I found that early on, I was moving way too quickly and we're not bringing people along with me. And so it was it was a good idea maybe that I was doing or implementing, but because I didn't have the buy-in, so I have slowed down a lot. Not slowed down in my thinking, but slowed down in making sure that I check off all the boxes to get everybody's opinion before I make a decision.
Yeah. Having worked, again, on the board with you for a couple of years, I don't think slow down is something in your vocabulary, Helene. I could pretty much say that is not what has happened, which is awesome. All right, before we get to the last question, I forgot to ask this earlier, but we got to circle back because you have ties to Philadelphia, a lot of ties to Philadelphia and Kansas City. So who do you root for? There's this big rivalry going on in football.
The truth of the matter is I root for Kansas City. I hate to say that, even though I was born in Philadelphia.
Because your ties go deeper to Philadelphia.
It was so much part of the culture in the 7 years I was there that the staff bought me shirts and there was Red Friday. And I mean, it became so much part of it. There was no way you could live in Kansas City and not be a Chiefs fan. So I've just kind of put on that T-shirt and moved forward. I've been much further away from Philadelphia in the sense that I moved there many, many years ago.
Yeah, but you still have a hint of the Philadelphia accent, though. I think.
Yes, I do, and I still have family there, so I don't really talk about it when they're at each other. Yeah, but the truth of the matter is, I root for the Chiefs.
I get it. Excellent. All right. Well, so one last question, Helene, as I said in the hot summer months of Florida here, what can we look for at JFCS of the Suncoast the rest of the year? What are, as the leader of the organization, what are some things that are top of mind that are happening the rest of this year?
We are expanding, not adding on programs, but expanding the programs that we have. We have now moved into Manatee County. We have memorandums of understanding with Manatee schools as well as Sarasota schools.
Right.
We have started one new program, which is Children Youth Response Service, which is an early entry. When there's a challenge, when a child is in distress, they can call us and we respond within 24 hours and guide that family through 3 months worth of counseling so that they can then get into a more permanent situation. The challenge is that the amount of services available, counseling services in Sarasota, it's a very high ratio. And there are a lot of people that are not at the point where they need to be Baker acted, which we have, an MRT for that. But what we try to do is prevention. How do we get in before to curb that problem? And that's really with all of our programs, like Camp Mariposa, which is a camp for kids that have families with addiction. It's getting these kids in early so that they don't go down that same route.
Yeah.
So this is the same principle that we have started out. So we're building up that program, and we are increasing our aging and working very much with the caregivers of those that have early onset dementia. And now we're looking into possibilities of working with that sandwich demographic, because they're taking care of aging parents and they're also taking care of kids. So we're looking to continue to do what we do well. We don't look to duplicate. We don't look to compete. We look to partner, and it's working. It's working well. Everything has been going very, very well. Excellent.
Well, Helene Lotman, CEO of JFCS of the Suncoast, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.